it's like, I know you got a ton to do. So hello, everybody. I know we've got some housekeeping to do, but first, I am so excited because formerly our very own, now grad student Lindsay Lazo is here in their capacity as our lead philosophy tutor at Pierce. And we are so lucky that Lindsay is our course embedded tutor for Phil 9. So I'm going to turn things over to Lindsay. Lindsay's going to tell you everything you need to know about Phil 9 tutoring, and then we'll go ahead and basically pick up where we left off. Well, we'll do some housekeeping first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mia. Hi, everyone. It's good to see that there are people in this optional Zoom call. This is amazing. I love to see that there are so many faces. So hi and welcome. I am your course embedded tutor. So what that means is that I focus specifically on Philosophy 9 and just like your class and the two other sections who are also doing Philosophy 9 with another professor. So all of my time is dedicated to you all and helping you succeed. So for me, what that means is focusing on, how are you learning this material? What kinds of like techniques and study strategies are you using? What do you know about the content, and how can we kind of excavate those questions? And work through that homework, because I do know that y'all have pretty much like a weekly, almost weekly quiz as your homework that you can do as many times as you'd like. So those weekly quizzes are things that you can do with me during my tutoring times. And if you can't make it, I do have a forum that I try and look at on the days that I'm tutoring, so Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I'll respond there as well. Sometimes I'll do like a written response, or I'll do a little quick video response, depending on kind of what's easier, what makes more sense. But I'm here to support you basically in your learning and in learning this content, kind of like what's going on in this book. Whatever kinds of questions you have, I definitely can answer. So my tutoring hours are on Tuesday. I'm actually technically tutoring right now. So Tuesday from 9 to 12, Wednesday 12 to 3. Let me just make sure I got this right. And then Thursday 2 to 6. So I do have a forum within your class that has those times. It also has my Zoom link. So you can just hop in at any point. It will put you into a waiting room during the times that I'm working. And that's just so I can make sure no like Zoom bombers come in stuff. But you'll be let in as soon as possible, and we'll go from there. So just so you know, because I am tutoring your class and two other classes, I typically do group tutoring during the times that I'm available. If you're the only one there, then you get some one-on-one time, but most often I get more than one student at a time, so we typically do group tutoring. So very similar to kind of how Mia conducts class, where you're asking questions and you're brainstorming together and you're thinking together. That's very much what we would do in a tutoring session. I help guide you to different areas of the book, kind of help you decipher what's going on in the book, and so on. So that's kind of what I have to say. The last thing I want to say is that tutoring is free. So that means that you don't have to pay $40 to $80 an hour for me to help you. It's completely free. You don't have to make an appointment. Just during my times, you drop in on that link. So definitely take advantage of this. And I'm really, really excited. Y'all are the last group that I'll be tutoring for my time at Pierce. I know. I've been here since 2015, and so I've been around for a little while, and so y'all are kind of like my final thing. Question in the chat: are these hours posted in Canvas? Yes, they are. If you go on the main homepage and you scroll down to my forum, I think it's like Ask Lindsay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called Ask Lindsay. Those times, thank you. Those times are posted. So here we are on the main page. You just scroll down to Let's Talk, Ask Lindsay, and then my times are posted right there. And there's my Zoom link. So I already posted like an introduction video, but I'm here and I basically said the same stuff. So you can watch it if you want, but it'll kind of be the same information. But yeah, you can ask your questions there as well, and I'll be checking on the days that I work.
Yay.
Any other questions?
Cool. I think, now some folks, start working with Lindsay, from the outset, and continue on through the semester. Some folks will drop in here and there. Tell me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, that in your experience, it's also in mine, where we get the most business during our office hours is when we're, deep into derivations and we're looking at strategies. And does that seem reasonable to you? So that will be what chapters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The most often that I get folks is when we start doing proofs. But I recommend folks start coming in as soon as possible, as early as possible. Whether you understand the content or you have no idea what's going on, it's just helpful to kind of like have a conversation about the content and the ways that you're studying it, to make sure you're kind of on the right track. And I also get to know you so that anytime that you come in, I already know your name, I already know kind of where you're starting from. And so I always recommend that everyone come in, because it's not just for folks who need help or are completely lost, it's for everyone. So
Yeah, that's a really good point too. The more you know people, the more efficient things are, because you kind of can get right to the business at hand, knowing where you've left off. So yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah.
yeah, so drop by anytime, and the sooner that, especially if you feel like you start to struggle, the sooner you jump in and either Mia or I help you, the better it will be, because this whole class, and I'm sure Mia said this a lot, everything builds on itself. So once you get lost at the foundation, the rest of the content can be very challenging to navigate. So the sooner the better is kind of what I recommend.
Cool. Thank you so much for dropping in. We
All
appreciate
right.
you. It's good to see
Yeah, if there
you.
are any other questions, feel free to just drop them in my Canvas, or you can come by tutoring, and I'll be there and we can talk. So
Awesome. And then you and I will catch up, because you have to tell me everything. So we'll catch up maybe at that. We'll do our
yeah,
twice our biannual catch up meeting.
yeah. All right, take care, y'all. See
Thank
you later.
you. Yeah, it's very exciting that we've got tutoring, because one of the things you might find is, let's say, Lindsay's hours are more convenient for you than are mine, or maybe you want to meet with both of us because having another pair of eyes on your work, or having another way to articulate ideas, just helps to reinforce or to clarify. So, the more the better. All right, any questions about tutoring? And what I'm going to do, so before we launch into work, just a little bit of housekeeping. As I mentioned as you know, last week, I couldn't make our meeting. I'm actually glad that I didn't try to force it, because I just didn't get back really in time to kind of be ready to have a conversation. But what I did was, I said I'd go ahead and start posting relevant videos. Also, today we'll be able to play catch up, I think, fairly handily. But just as a bit of housekeeping related to posting videos, as a reminder, if you go under resources, so let's say week 1 resources, what I've started to do is this. at the top of the optional watch list is a set of links to our class meetings. So if for whatever reason you want to watch a video of a class meeting, just click on the relevant week, and then day 1 is a Tuesday, day 2 is a Thursday, and I try and give you a basic idea of what we're doing, right? And then, as you already know, there are videos directly from our textbooks author, Dr. Ian Schnee, and then also videos that I provide. And then if we click on, so speaking of last week, so I'm going to go into resources again. In addition to the days of the week, so here day 3 is the Tuesday, our third meeting of the semester. Day 4 is Thursday. And here, let's see, did I do it here or not? I think this video, so this would have been the day that I missed. Let me just click real quick to make sure that I'm right about this. Yeah, so this is a video that is in place of our Thursday meeting. That said, I've got more in place of Thursday videos to make. Why? Because I also make chapter highlight videos. So let me make sure. Yeah, there we go. So close that window. So basically, what you'll see if we go back, one more time to week 1. I try, in addition to our class meeting videos, to provide you with what I'm calling LCA chapter highlights videos. So Logic Course Adventure chapter 1 highlights, and then chapter 2 highlights are down here, and so forth. I'm not sure why Canvas no longer shows a little thumbnail of the video. It doesn't embed the video. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but it seemed like there was a change in Canvas to where now when I insert a link to a YouTube video that I've made, the link does not appear above a little thumbnail of the video. If you know something about that, please tell me. Like, if you know that maybe I'm doing something wrong, that I don't know. Anyway, so I give you chapter highlights as we go forward, because my thinking is that rather than a full lecture, you've got a anywhere from 5 to 20-minute video that covers what I'm taking to be, for our purposes, the most important concepts and skills. Okay, so if you have any questions about those, let me know. But I hope the way that they're arranged, they're ordered, I should say, makes sense to you. Okay. Do you have any questions, problems, confusions, by the way, about any of the items we were working on last week?
I have a question about the textbook.
Yes, Arshak, what are you thinking?
For some reason I was locked out of the textbook and it's making me buy it again. Do you have
No.
a code?
Right, no, you shouldn't have to buy it again. So something weird is going on. FYI, Dr. Schnee knows about it. He's trying to sort it. I'm looking at our class members. Who was it? It wasn't Victoria. Somebody had the same issue. And so what I did was, in responding to that person, I also posted a message to you guys saying, hey, if anybody's experiencing the same issue, try this. So let me share my screen again, Arshak, and let me know if, let's see, let's go to announcements.
Hi, Professor. It was me, Ziba.
Oh, Ziba, thank you. Okay, great. Oh, you know what I did? Now I remember. Okay, so two things. I'm going to turn, if you don't mind, Ziba, I'm going to turn the stage, if you will, over to you. But first, Arsha, quick I just remembered what I did. I didn't post an announcement. I think I pushed out an email. So in that email, there's a series of steps that you can take, or a series of troubleshooting exercises you can try to make it work. So look for that email. If you don't see it, let me know. I'll reset it. Ziba, do you mind telling us what you did to get back into the textbook without having to buy it again?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. Actually, I bought the book like the first week of the college, and then in the exam days, that past Sunday, I tried to other computer to log in my book. Because of that, I logged out and I don't have the book in the Sunday. And I asked you, you said me like try some items. I turn on and turn off my VPN, and it's get okay. It's get good, and I can use my books again. It's Sunday.
So it was the VPN. So Arshak, do you use a VPN?
No, I don't.
Okay. And by the way, you if you did have to quote unquote buy the book again, I just send you the code if you want. That said, I recognize you don't want to do that because you've already, started and made progress, right, in the existing iteration of the purchase. So there are a couple of troubleshooting exercises you can try. The VPN worked for Ziba. Another exercise is, and it maybe has something to do with a password, but you could try. I think he said something like turning off your Wi-Fi if you can go off of cell data to see if you can reconnect that way. But Arshak, let's chat a little bit more about this if you have a couple minutes after class, and I'll find that email. Or if you can find it while we're chatting today, I sent it out on Sunday. It was an email that I sent through Canvas to everybody on Sunday. The last thing that I can recommend too, and it's in that email that I sent, is don't be shy about sending an alert to Dr. Shanae. Say, hey, you had said to Mia that folks should get with you, and this is the problem I'm having. And if you can articulate in as much detail as possible what's going on, he may be able to resolve the issue for you straight away. And he's very responsive.
Actually, Professor, I couldn't able to rebuy it again. It said me disconnect by server. I couldn't able to buy it because it was a Sunday. I just want to buy it again.
Yeah.
I don't disturb you, but I couldn't able to. When I turn on my VPN, everything is good, and I had my book, like no need to rebuy.
Okay.
I think VPN is gonna be work for Arshak too.
Okay, but Arshak is saying that he doesn't use a VPN.
I think he had to buy a VPN and use with VPN. We need the VPN.
Oh, I see what you're. Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, so Arshak, maybe we can chat more about that. Yeah, I always forget to turn on my VPN, and so, but yeah. Although you shouldn't have to buy that. That shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to buy a VPN to get access to the text, but let's see if we can troubleshoot it some more. Well, that sounds good. Okay. All right. So and thank you, Ziba, for that. That's very helpful. All right. So, sorry. What are you thinking?
I said you're welcome.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. I started to share my or I started to log in, and then I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so just as a reminder, and hold on, I want to size my screen so that I think we can get everybody in. Yeah. Okay. So let me just make a note about what chapters we are in right now. So we're covering. Should be, yeah. So chapters 4 through 8. And, you might say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of chapters. But remember, the presentation is of kind of bite-sized pieces, right? So instead of one long chapter, right, the material is divided up into multiple chapters. So the idea here, so here's the short story with chapters 4 through 8. The focus is on simple, or it's also known as an atomic sentence. So on simple or atomic and compound sentences. So, as a reminder, when we're engaged in an argument, we're engaged with sentences that are either true or false, right? So we're engaged with what's known as a statement. The next step, if you will, is either to say, okay, well, now let's talk about whether or not this argument is logically correct. That's where we started, right? Or another next step is to say, okay, so arguments are constituted by statements. Well, how am I supposed to understand the logical structure of the statements involved, right? And that's where we are now. It's the first pass. And what I mean by that is this. We can interpret the logical structure of a statement in at least a couple of different ways. Remember that big overview that I gave you last week involved thinking of statements as either singular, right, or quantified. Another way to put it is statements that are about individually named things, or we interpret a sentence as referring to an individual, even if it's not quite that. Or the statement is non-specific, right? So because it's a quantified statement, it's about at least one thing, multiple things, but these things are not named. They're not specified. So we can talk about groups of things, classes of things, sets or categories of things. So those are two basic ways of interpreting a sentence. So we're starting with the first way mentioned, which is singular statements about individually named things. And we, of those statements, we say, well, we've got atomic or simple statements and we've got compound statements. And remember also that we said a simple or atomic sentence is a sentence that doesn't have a truth value, which, again, you might say, well, that's not, sorry, I said doesn't have a truth value. I meant to say, this is what happens when I start to go fast because I'm trying to make up time. I apologize. Anyway, a simple sentence or an atomic sentence is one that does not involve a connective. And you might say, well, Mia, that's not very helpful. I don't know what a connective is, right? So then we can say, well, a simple sentence is a sentence that is the smallest linguistic entity with a truth value. In other words, you can't further reduce the sentence. You can't eliminate words without losing the truth value, right? So let's do this real quick. Remember then, a simple sentence does not involve a connective. It is the smallest linguistic entity that is true or false. That is, that has a truth value, right? So, for example, we could say this, Arshak speaks, right? If I get rid of the verb speaks, now I've just got the name, right? But I have a complete sentence. It's true or false that Arshak speaks. In other words, the property of the sentence is going to be true or false depending on whether or not it is the case that Arshak speaks, right? But we don't have to have just two words. We can have a really much longer sentence. So, for example, we could say, Ziba turned on the VPN in order to access the Logic Course Adventure, right? So, two simple sentences, but one has few words, one has a lot of words, right? Then we have compound sentences, right? So a compound sentence let me rework how I'm writing this. A compound sentence is constituted by at least one atomic or simple sentence and at least one connective. So we can say, for example, it's not the case that Arshak is speaking, right? We could say, Ziba turned on the VPN and suggested Arshak do the same. So what are we talking about when we're talking about a connective? Well, it's not the case. And notice that in each case, we can dismantle the compound sentence by way of removing connectives. Okay, Victoria, what are you thinking?
I just thinking about the example when we have a compound sentence and it composed by one atomic sentence.
So in order to have a compound sentence, you have to have not just a single atomic sentence, but you have to have at least one atomic sentence and a connective.
So I just think about the example when we have just one atomic sentence. Could you give one example with one atomic sentence and connective?
Okay, so if you can you see the whiteboard okay?
Whiteboard?
I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, okay. So look at the red lettered sentences Arshak speaks and Ziba turned on the VPN. Can you see those okay?
Yeah.
Each one of those is a simple or atomic sentence. And then what I did with the green two examples is I introduced a connective. So in the first case where you've got the blue underlining, I've taken the sentence Arshak speaks or Arshak is speaking and I've negated it. So now we've got a compound sentence. Am I addressing your question?
Yes, so not A, it is a compound sentence. It's not an atomic.
Great. Yeah, good for you.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
exactly. Yep. Now, let's suppose, so notice the language that Victoria just used, not A. Let's suppose that in the first sentence, Arshak speaks, right? A stands for Arshak speaks. So we would do this, A for Arshak speaks. And then the negation, and we'll go over this more formally in a second, but I want to just follow up on the great question Victoria had. Then the negation, it's not the case, is symbolized by the tilde, the little squiggle mark. Now, in the second sentence, notice that we have the sentence, we've got a reference to Arshak again, but this time the sentence that's about Arshak is about Arshak turning on the VPN. So maybe what we do, especially if we're thinking about using these two sentences in one argument, we can't have the same letter, in this case capital letter A, stand for two different simple sentences, because that once we've got A, we won't know which simple sentence it's meant to denote. So for every sentence involving Arshak, if one sentence is different from the other, we use a different letter. So we might do something like this. We might say, okay, so and is the connective, and that's symbolized with an ampersand. And let's say capital Z for Ziba turned on the VPN, and Ziba suggested Arshak do the same. Well, here we've got a sentence that's actually, the simple sentence is, sorry, I just had three thoughts colliding. The simple sentence's subject is, Ziba telling Arshak to do the same. We don't want to use Z again, so we could do something like this. I don't know, V for suggested turning on the VPN, right? Okay, so what we want to think about doing is looking at sentences in terms of their components. What components? Well, simple or atomic elements and connectives. Okay, so let's do this. Hold on just one second. Let's continue on. Okay, so in the Boolean system, with which we're starting, there are three connectives. And by the way, it's called the Boolean system. It's named after George Boole, the mathematician logician who came up with these. What's extraordinary, as far as I'm concerned, about the Boolean system is this. If you think about how complicated language is, regardless of what language you're talking about, but let's just focus on English, because that's the common language that we're working in here. The fact that that for Boole, every single sentence can be compounded or can be disassembled by way of three connectives is like, that's extraordinary, right? So there are three connectives. There's negation, and the symbol that we're using is the tilde. And its function is to negate. Ordinary English expressions include not, it's not the case that, it's false that, and so forth. Okay. So let's do this. We've got the following. Whoopsie, come on, Mia. Right, so this is the connective name. Apropos of nothing other than it just popped into my head. Did I provide to you, I think it was Kenneth who had asked about it. Did I provide to you the whiteboard notes the last time we used the whiteboard? Do you remember?
Yes, we used it.
We used the whiteboard, but did I post the notes?
Oh,
No.
I didn't? Okay. Well, maybe I'm thinking another class. Sorry about that. I should be able to do that, no problem. Function, okay. And then over here is going to be the ordinary English expressions. Okay, so we've got negation, we've got conjunction, which is symbolized with an ampersand. The symbol name is, well, you could say ampersand or conjunction. I always just call it conjunction. Its function is to conjoin. And think about that word, con with, so a bringing with or bringing together. In the sense of now saying these are joined together. So a bringing with. We've got a number of ordinary English expressions. So there's sorry. By the way, the fact that I messed up writing reminds me, if there's anything that's illegible, yell at me and I'll try to decipher it for you. So we've got and, the phrase both, and, yet, still, in addition. I mean, there's a whole bunch. Okay. And then the last one is the disjunction. That's symbolized by a lowercase v, often called the wedge. And its function is to disjoin. So it's true that two elements are brought together or are being brought together by this disjunction. But when we think about what the disjunction does, it's not saying that you've got to have both together. It's saying, well, you've got at least one, okay? So ordinary English phrases include or, either, or, at least one or the other. Okay. So here's how we build, right? When we use negation, we place the tilde to the left of whatever is to be negated. So let me give you an example. Right? So, let's see. Okay, so Walter's over my left shoulder right now. Stewie's over my right shoulder. You can't see Stewie. Here's how I'm gonna to work this. Stewie is on the chair. Right? Now, here's another bit of symbolization we want to think about. In our version of the system, and we'll talk about why we do this, but for right now, just know that every simple or atomic sentence is translated or by a capital letter A through Z. So that capital letter A through Z denotes a specific simple sentence. Okay? So let's say Stewie is on the chair, is symbolized with S. But remember, we can see it's Walter who's on the chair. It's not the case that Stewie is on the chair. Right? Now, if I combine the two sentences, Stewie is on the chair, with the sentence, Walter is on the chair, I could do this. Bear with me. Stewie and Walter are both on the chair. Okay, so we've got S for Stewie is on the chair, W for Walter is on the chair, and the conjunction goes in the middle. P.S. You'll notice when you're working on the Logic Course Adventure website that Dr. Schnee never has spaces between all the elements in a sentence. And the reason for that is just that, again, as a reminder, when he was thinking of building this web-based course, he knew that lots of people would be working on, it could be tablets, it could be, phones. And, the more work you have to do to symbolize, right, the longer it takes. So instead of putting spaces, there are no spaces. That said, I just write spaces just to give myself a visual, and I'm just used to doing it. But it's not the case that you have to do it that way. All right, now let me go back to a point I made just a moment ago. So hold on just one second. Remember the sentence, or remember the point that I made here. When we use negation, we place the tilde to the left of whatever is to be negated. Well, if I'm telling you that, we look over my left shoulder, I'm telling you Walter's on the chair, I'm telling you Stewie is down here on my right side, then that means that it's not the case that both Stewie and Walter are on the chair, right? So notice what the negation's doing. It's saying it's not the case that Stewie and Walter together, right? So couple things jump out, I hope. One is the conjunction always goes in between the sentences that it conjoins, right? So think about conjunction as like, what's it called? The white stuff in the Oreo cookie, or, the peanut butter and jelly in the sandwich. In other words, it's the stuff that goes between the bookends, if you will, of the sentences involved, okay? Notice also that there's a pair of parentheses around the S conjunction W sentence. That's because the negation is operating on the conjunction itself. If I had this instead, right? So let's think about this. The scope of the negation covers the entire sentence. That is the conjunction, right? So we use parentheses, right? The parentheses set off the conjunction as a unit. On the other hand, here, the scope of the negation is limited to S. Okay? So, first off, how are we doing? What do we think? Oops, sorry, let me back out of that. Questions, problems, confusions.
Hi, Professor. This is Priscilla. So, I understand the first one, the negation always goes to the left. I just am a little confused as to how you would read the second example without the parentheses.
Right.
It would be like,
Yeah.
so that Stewie is not on the chair and Walter is?
Yeah, beautiful, Priscilla. Good for you. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we would get, so let's think about two things. One is, here's what the sentence says. It's not the case that Stewie is on the chair, but Walter is. Or exactly as Priscilla said, Stewie's not on the chair and Walter is on the chair, right? When we read back what we've written, we can see most often quite clearly whether or not we have translated, we've symbolized the sentence correctly, right? So part of our work involves getting those translations right. Now, one of the things that I find really helpful about doing this sort of work is that I am forced to really pay attention to what someone's saying, right? If I want to accurately represent the argument, I've got to get those elements right. And so my focus ends up being, not on whether or not I agree with the person's argument, although, I could be excited or angry or whatever, but my focus, is turned to the logic. And so, any sort of emotive stuff that's not really helpful in this case, certainly not helpful with establishing truth, right? That gets set aside. And we also, I think, the other point I think I've made before is we become also, at least I hope anyway, kind of sharper readers, right? Because we're looking for the logical structure of a given sentence using this system. Okay, so we can see we've got capital letters denote simple or atomic sentences. So that's one thing. The ampersand and, well, we haven't seen it yet, but we will. Ampersand and disjunction always go between the sentences on which they operate and parentheses group compound statement elements together. Right, so let me give you a disjunction, right? So how about this? So not both Stewie and Walter are on the chair, or I don't know, Brett Michaels is in the bedroom, right? So we could say that B denotes I actually think Brett is actually in the bathroom. In any case, right, we notice what we've got. We've got the left side of the disjunction and the right side of the disjunction. The right side of the disjunction is the atomic sentence, the simple sentence B. The left side of the disjunction is this compound sentence. It's not the case that both, right? So here's how we know that the sentence is a disjunction. Well, the disjunction of the three operators, and now I'm using the word operator instead of connective. We'll use them interchangeably, but I want us to talk about operator right now, use the language of operator right now, because the disjunction is the only symbol that operates on the whole thing, where the whole thing is B and the stuff on the other side of the disjunction, right? if we say that negation is the main or driving sentence, such that, oh, this is a negation sentence, we'd say, well, what are we supposed to do with the disjunction and the be? Because we can see by the parentheses that the tilde operates only on that conjunction. Okay. So a couple things to think about. One is, depending on how you've been working through things, you might say, oh yeah, I got it. This is great in the sense that, I know this stuff. Come on, Mia, move along, right? If that's the case, yay, good. Remember, reinforcement, becoming familiar with this stuff, getting comfortable with it is what we want, okay? If it's not familiar to you, you've got to ask, okay, well, do I need to make sure that I'm spending a little chunk of time every day going through the text, assuming you can access it, right? Do I want to, if I don't like reading, do I want to maybe, watch some videos to make sure that I'm comfortable with what we're learning, right? How are we doing so far? So we have our ingredients, if you will, for interpreting sentences according to the Boolean system, right? We've got atomic sentences or simple sentences symbolized with a capital letter A through Z. If we're in an argument, we're going to use the capital letter to stand for one and only one atomic sentence, right? We don't want it to stand for different sentences because we won't know which one we're talking about. We use connectives in order to compound simple sentences. And we've got 3 connectives. We've got the negation, the conjunction, and the disjunction. Now, where we're headed, think about what the heck chapter numbers are we talking about? Where we're headed starting next week is how we prove a valid argument's conclusion using rules that we will see this week are based on what it means for a negation sentence to be true or false, a conjunction sentence to be true or false, a disjunctive sentence to be true or false. Okay? So we're laying the groundwork for that right now. All right, so what do we know about arguments? Arguments are intended to establish some claim, okay? So in other words, the aim of an argument is to prove that something is the case. Well, when we're dealing with sentences that are negation, conjunction, and disjunction, how do we know when such a sentence is true or false? Okay, so let's talk about that. How do we know when a compound sentence is true or false? In other words, right, what are the truth values for these sentences? We're going to focus on the conditions under which a sentence comes out true, the conditions under which a sentence comes out false. Okay, so another way to put it is this. What are the conditions under which a negation, conjunction, and disjunction are true or false? What we're going to see is that the truth or falsity of a sentence is a function of the ingredients, the inputs. So let me try to make some sense of that. Okay, so the truth or falsity of a compound sentence is a function of the simple sentence constituents So it could be a single simple sentence. It could be multiple, which is why I've got the S in a parenthetical. That was really illegible. So let me make it clearer. And the meaning of the symbol operating on it or them. Okay, so let's capitalize on stuff you already know. Is it fair to say, going back to the sentence about Arshak speaking, right? Is it fair to say that the sentence Arshak speaks is either true or false? What do we think? Yes, Kenneth, exactly. Right?
We don't know yet.
What?
We don't know whether it's either true or false.
Right, but we know that those are our two options. And so when you say it's the same system used in coding, yeah, you've got this bivalence or binary system. Yeah. So the sentence is either true or false. So no, let's pause for a second and make sure we're clear on what Kenneth just said, because it's going to help us as we go forward. Remember earlier I said that we're going to be talking about possible values, right? So we're in the logic of what are the conditions under which? Now we don't know, and this is what Kenneth said, we don't know whether or not it's true in any given circumstance that Arshak is speaking or is not speaking. We don't know if it's true or false that Arshak is speaking, right? But we do know that one or the other is the case, right? So, every atomic sentence is either true or false. Fair enough? Now, question for you, just because I want to use B, if you don't mind, let me use B for bore, if that's okay. Suppose that I want to think not just about whether or not it's true or false that Arshak is speaking. Suppose that I want to know if it's true or false that Bor and Arshak is speaking, or that one or the other is speaking. So notice what we can do here. Well, it could be true that Arshak is. It could be true that Bor is. It could be true that Arshak is. It could be false that Bor is. It could be false that Arshak is. It could be true that Bor is. And then finally, each value could be false. Now, if you're like me, you might be thinking, what? T's and F's flying around? What's going on? Right? Think about these possible permutations as exhausting the possible ways in which A could be true in relation to B, right? And vice versa, right? So, scenario one, whatever we're saying about Arshak and Bor, both true. Second scenario, one's true, one's false. And I'm sorry, my rows aren't lining up nicely here. Let me make it prettier. Right? Does this make some sense? Okay. So these are our reference values. Remember earlier I wrote that the truth or falsity of a compound statement is rooted in the elements that constitute the statement. So we start off with a simple or atomic sentence, right? So again, let's suppose that A stands for Arshak speaks, B stands for Boer speaks, okay? What happens now if I negate A? Remember, the role of negation, the function of negation is to reject the sentence it's negating. So what happens if we say it's not the case that true? What do you think? So right now, and Arshak, don't make me a liar. So right now, Arshak.
Yes.
Oh, he's Arshak speaking. That's true. Okay. Right now, though, it's not the case that. So if I say it's true that Arshak's speaking, you guys are going to say what?
No.
you violated it because you answered, you vocalized. No, that was fine. Yeah. Right? How about it's not the case that false. I know the locution might sound strange, but it'll get easier. It's not the case that false. Remember, we're rejecting that value. What are we going to say? Yes, Kenneth, it's true. So this is the set of truth definitions, or this is how the negation is defined. This is the set of truth definitions for the negation. The negation's value is always going to be the opposite of the sentence it negates, right? So negation rejects the value of the sentence negated. Okay. All right, now hold on. I'm gonna bring this forward. All right, so truth definitions. Okay, so negation is always defined as the opposite of the value of the sentence it negates. Now let's go back to so there are two possible values for negation. On the other hand, let's take a look at conjunction and disjunction. All right, so conjunction sentence. So let's look at row number 1, and I'll go ahead and jot them down here too. If it's true that Arshak speaks and it's true that Boer speaks, oh, that's not a great color, is it? It's not showing up very clearly. If it's true that Arshak speaks, it's true that Boer speaks, is it true that both are speaking? Okay, good. All right. Whoops, sorry, hold on. All right, there we go. Next possible set of values. Suppose it's true that Arshak's speaking, but it's false that Bohr's speaking. Is it true that both are speaking? By the way, does everybody see Arshak's using the check mark for true and the red X for false? Very nice. Next, suppose it's false that Arshak is speaking, but it's true that Bohr is speaking. Is it true that both are speaking? Very good. And then finally, if it's false that Arshak speaks, is speaking, and it's false that Bohr is speaking, is it true that both are speaking? Right. So notice how the conjunction is defined. A conjunction is true when and only when each of the conjuncts is true. Okay? So when you see a conjunction sentence, you know that the conditions under which conjunctions are true, or the conjunction in question is true, is when each of the conjuncts is true. It's a pretty rigid demand. All right, and next, I think you know where we're going with this. If it's true that Arshak speaks, is it true that Arshak or Bohr speaks? Is it true that at least one of the two speaks? Yeah. And this is where a lot of people get confused. People say, hold on, it's one or the other, not both. Well, no. We'll talk more about this, but the short story is the or, from the standpoint of truth functionality, is inclusive. As long as one of the disjuncts is true, the disjunction is true, right? At least one or the other. And so, we don't know. So let's suppose that we know that Arshak speaks, but suppose that we have no idea what's going on with Bohr. Maybe Bohr is, maybe Bohr isn't. In other words, we don't know if it's true or false that Bohr speaks. We'd still say that the sentence one or the other is speaking is true. Okay, how about take what we've just said and apply it here. Is it true or false that at least one is speaking, one or the other? Yep. Now, if I only know that Arshak is speaking is false, what do I have enough information to determine the value of the disjunction? I don't, exactly. I need to know whether or not Bohr is speaking, and if Bohr is speaking, then is the sentence at least one or the other is speaking true or false? Excellent. Excellent, excellent. And then lastly, it's false that Bohr speaks. It's false that Arshak speaks. It's false that Bohr speaks. Is it true that at least one or the other is speaking? Excellent, excellent, excellent. Good work, everybody. Awesome. So notice here, the or, and this is going to come into play when we're working on our derivation rules. There's one and only one instance when the disjunction is false, and that's when each of the disjuncts is false. So what we do is we take these definitions and we employ them wherever we see a sentence that involves one or more connectives. So first, do the definitions make sense? Are we doing okay with those? one of the things that I like to do, by the way, I can't make a shorthand for the negation because there are only two, it's defined in two ways alone, right? But sometimes I will do something like this. I'll just say, right, I know that it's true in one case only, or with the disjunction, I'll say, it's just a nice little shorthand. It's false in one case only. Okay. All right, so let's apply our newly found truth definitions. Let's go back to our Stewie Walter example. Okay, so I'm gonna just make up some sentences, and then I'm gonna tell you what the truth values are, and then you'll tell me based on the definitions I'm going to make up some sentences. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a scenario. So I'm going to give you effectively a row, and then you're going to determine the truth value of the sentence based on the constituent elements. All right, so it's not the case that Walter... let me rephrase that. It's not the case that both Walter and Stewie are on the chair. By the way, as I'm writing out these sentences, if you're jotting down notes to self, go ahead and start working on translations here, okay? Because then we can basically kill two birds with one stone. Neither Brett nor H is on the chair. Walter is on the chair, but Stewie isn't. All right, so question for you. How many simple or atomic sentences are in each of these exercises? Yes, Kenneth says 2 exactly. So let's go ahead and find them. So here's one approach to translation in terms of order of determining how to take your ordinary English sentence and reconstruct it in symbolic logic notation. Find the names, right? So we've got Walter on the chair. We've got Stewie on the chair. All right. So I've got, and everything else is a connective. I can do this. I can say, all right, I'm going to identify my connectives. It's not the case that, and then this whole thing, put my parentheses around here, both Walter and Stewie. So I end up with this sentence. It's not the case that both Walter and Stewie are on the chair. Now, what I'm going to do is tell you that or I don't even need to tell you, you can see for yourself. The gray dog on the chair is Walter, right? So it's true that Walter is on the chair. It's false that Stewie is on the chair. The question now is, based on what you know about the driving or main connective, or we can talk about the scope of each of the connectives, right? What is, and sorry, your newfound understanding of the truth definitions. Is this sentence true or false? What do you think? Okay, Arshak saying it is false. Does anybody disagree? Okay, I'm going to take silence as approval for Arshak's calculation, determination. Yes, good for you, Arshak. So we know that a conjunction is true when and only when each conjunct is true. One of the conjuncts is false, so the conjunction is false. Now, once I've calculated or determined the values, I'm going to cross those off because I'm done with those. I've used those to determine the conjunction. Now I'm going to go for the negation. What do? I say it's not the case that conjunction. The conjunction is false, so it's not the case that false, it's true. By the way, is everybody comfortable with the fact that the negation is the main operator because it's the one that's got the exhaustive scope? What do we think? Pretty good? Okay. All right. Now, do me a huge favor if you would. If it's convenient for you to use the chat, go ahead and type the translation for number 2, where B is going to stand for the sentence, Brett is on the chair, and H stands for the sentence, H is on the chair. All right. Good, good, good. We've got a couple of responses. Now I'm going to read the first one. The first one says, it's not the case that B and H. And the second one says, it's not the case that B or H. So let's break this guy down. We've got... Oh, and then a third one. Yep, we're going to hold on to that, Jasmine. Really good. It's not the case that, right? So no problem there. This is the same negation, right? So it's not the case that, and then we've got this whole big empty spot. Now, go back to your ordinary English phrases and words. Remember that we've got an either or. So that's going to be a disjunction, right? So we've got, it's not the case that Brett or H. Now, Jasmine, and by the way, Kenneth, are you okay with that? Take a look, Kenneth, at what Jasmine did, and I'm going to write it up here as well. This is, and we'll see this, we won't have time this week, this week. We won't have time today, but we're definitely getting to this on Thursday. The sentence I just wrote is truth functionally equivalent to, or truth table equivalent to, the sentence that Jasmine wrote. Oh, sorry. Where the negation was pushed through, right, distributed across the disjunction, which then changes to a conjunction. So neither nor is equivalent to both are not. We'll come back to this later, but just in the couple minutes we have left, if I tell you that this sentence is true, then that means that this sentence is true. Work backwards. If the negation is true, what is the value of the disjunction? Use your definitions. If the negation is true, what's the value of the disjunction? Remember the role, the function of negation is to reject. So if it's true that neither Brett nor H is on the chair, then that means the sentence Brett or H is on the chair is? Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Priscilla, Dominic, Kenneth. Excellent. False. And what do we know about B? What do we know about H, given that the disjunction is false? Working backwards. Beautiful. Thank you, Dominic. Okay, and then lastly, since, I told you, and we'll prove this with a full truth table on Thursday, but, or we'll demonstrate it on Thursday, but if you know that the conjunction is true, what are the values of the negations? In other words, what is it that makes a conjunction true? A conjunction is true when and only when each of the conjuncts is, thank you, Dominic, true. So true, sorry that my line didn't go far enough. True and true, which makes B and H what? The atomic sentences. If not B is true, if not H is true, then B is and H is. Sweet. False. False. Beautiful. Okay, so we're at time. We will pick up with number 3 on Thursday, and then we're going to move into using the truth table to determine important assessments like truth table equivalence, validity, and so forth. So it's going to be loads of fun. Meanwhile, if you have questions, problems, confusions, let me know. I am around. I am here to help. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Professor, can we talk about the textbook?
Yeah.